Imagine the fun you'll have at your wedding, one of life's most treasured moments. In each episode, hear from leading wedding professionals as they share with you insider tips and personal advice for a magical wedding. Welcome to the Indian Wedding Podcast. Here to help plan your wedding with style and grace are your hosts, Kunal and Jinal Sampat.
Hey guys, welcome to the Indian Wedding Podcast. This is Kunal and Jinal, your show hosts, where our job is to help you create a meaningful and magical Indian wedding. In this episode, we interview Chandni, who started Events by Sea, where she provides wedding planning services in Maryland, DC metro area, Chicago, and beyond. Chandni shares with us the importance of hiring a wedding planner and how they can help you plan a stress-free wedding. And of course, it's true that wedding planning will cost you a bit of money, but you in turn will save yourself hours of research and leave the difficult conversations with other wedding vendors for the wedding planner to handle. And as a bonus, the planner can actually help you make the impossible possible. Please join me in welcoming the all-amazing Chandni to the Indian Wedding Podcast. All right, Chani, this is Kunal and Janal from the Indian Wedding Podcast. We're super pumped to have you on the show. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we are super excited to have you as well, Chandni. So, to get us started, what about wedding planning excites you, and how did you end up in the wedding planning industry, basically?
So I think everything about weddings really excites me. I'm a very logistics timeline type of oriented type of person. So all of that really excites me. Of course, the aspect of the wedding itself, where it's such a big moment for couples and their families, and kind of the personalization and the details that go into that. And I think that's something that's kind of really important to me also as I'm planning and telling couples that make sure that we are getting personalization in there. If there's something that you guys really love, or if there's like something that's just really important to you guys, a city or something like that, we want to incorporate different things about that into the wedding day. We just don't want it to be a cookie cutter type of wedding. In terms of getting started, I actually did my very first wedding when I was 18. So I was right out of high school, and it was a summer between high school and college. And I guess I just always really had an interest in weddings, and one of our family friends was getting married. And he kind of just called us one day, just kind of frazzled, and was like, hey, I'm getting married in 3 weeks. And we were kind of like, we didn't even know you were dating someone. So it was a really quick kind of thing. And of course, that was my summer between high school and college, so I wasn't doing a ton. So I asked if I could help plan, and he said, yeah, of course, we'll take all the help we can get. And that's when I realized that this is something that I really, really like and was passionate about, and actually ended up being pretty good at doing as well.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's pretty cool story, and it seems like you've pretty much dedicated your whole career to this.
Yeah. So I mean, I went to college after that. I worked for a couple of years and then went full time with the business.
Yeah, that's awesome. So why do you think brides and grooms should hire a wedding planner?
I think it takes a ton of stress off of the couples. I mean, I think there's just a lot of things. Of course, there's a lot of advice and feedback that we can give them. We can, right off the bat, let them know that, hey, this vendor is great, or maybe this vendor doesn't have great reviews, or whatever the case may be, not just vendor wise, but just in general about doing a lot of things. I think it saves them a lot of time. Something that might take them 2 or 3 hours of research, we can answer within minutes for them, just because we have that experience and that expertise of having done so many weddings and being able to just quickly give them those answers. So one, I think it definitely saves them a lot of time. And of course, the stress factor, just knowing that they have someone who's on their side. They have someone who is looking out for their best interest, budget-wise, even just with general decisions. Sometimes venues or vendors may try to talk them into something, and not saying anything negative, but sometimes vendors and venues might just not realize that what a couple's needs are, whereas us as a planner, we know exactly what the needs are, what their means are, and kind of making that happen. There's also a lot of things which I'm sure you guys guys may have come across as well, that it may seem like something's not possible to do at first, but then if you have a planner on your side, they can always kind of work a little bit of magic and make things happen as well. So I think those are all definitely important factors of having a planner involved. And then, of course, management for the day of and things like that too, so that, again, removing that stress factor, making sure that family or bride and groom, even their friends, aren't kind of worried about, hey, how's everything working out? Or, hey, do all my vendors have the right address? Are they here on time? Things like that. So it just really takes a lot off of the couple, especially when they are kind of going with a full service type of package.
No, I agree. So what are some of the you said that sometimes like vendors will end up selling things or getting brides and grooms to agree to things that they don't need, basically. Is that what you were alluding to?
So, I mean, again, I think that I don't mean that in a negative way whatsoever. I think just sometimes as a planner, we get to know couples a lot better than sometimes maybe anyone else
Sure.
working with them for the wedding might be. So, I think what I mean by that is just that, I may know that a bride particularly hates some sort of flower or just doesn't like some color or something like that, and just a little bit more specific too. So if we see that, hey, a vendor is kind of going in that direction with something, then we can always step in and kind of just let them know, like, hey, you know what, this bride actually isn't interested in that. Their style is more, it's more modern or whatever it may be. Just having that opportunity to kind of get to know the couple, and what they like, don't like, it also helps them, because I think sometimes also, like, if you're going for initial consultation with someone, you as a bride or groom may feel a little awkward, like, oh, I actually don't like that. Where we can kind of just
Mm,
step in and easily say,
Right.
hey, we're actually going in another
yeah.
direction. And it kind of saves them that awkwardness or kind of wasting time talking about something that they're not interested
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, so wedding planners are more like sensitive on the sensitive side versus like the vendors can be like more cookie cutter, like approach for the
Yeah, or
couple.
just not maybe fully
Yeah.
understanding, where they're at,
Mhm.
or kind of knowing their personalities and their likes and
Totally. It's
dislikes
a
as
really
well.
good point. Yeah. So, Chandi, can you tell us a little bit about your process? I mean, overall process, like how do you work with couples and family typically from start?
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. So typically we have an initial consultation, to, of course, talk to them about, what we offer and things like that. And then, of course, if a couple does decide to move forward, of course, they get a welcome packet from us, which we like to make very detailed, so that couples have a lot of information from us kind of right off the bat. So that will include things like a preferred vendor list, a wedding terms glossary, just because a lot of times we do, of course, primarily South Asian weddings, mostly Hindu ceremonies. A lot of the times, couples aren't familiar with a lot of the terms that are used for weddings and things like that. So we want to give them kind of a glossary that explains what everything is so that they can be familiar. And then, of course, our first consultation meeting that we have is kind of diving into getting to know them, what their budget is, what's most important to them. I like asking couples what their top three things are, that are the most important to them during the wedding planning process. And so that way we can focus on those things and make sure that those are basically our top notch items, that we're making sure that we have the best of the best. Of course, that is in all aspects of the wedding. We want to make sure that it is a good balance of what their budget is, what they're looking for, things like that. But it's helpful to have a kind of an idea on what those most important things are, so that it's something I can keep in mind moving forward with the planning. So yeah, that first session is really to get to know them, what their ideas are, talking through them. Of course, me sharing my creative input with that as well, and then of course going down into breaking down the budget, talking about how much we're dedicating to each vendor, what our flexibility is, what of course realistic costs are as well, just so that they have an idea. And then, of course, going and shopping for the vendors, talking to different vendors. I always recommend meeting at least three of each vendor type, so that you kind of get a well-rounded idea on the vendors. I think meeting fewer than that, then you feel like, oh, what if I met so and so as
Right.
well? And if you're meeting much more than three, then it can get a little confusing with too many options as well. Yeah, and then so we start with the shopping phase of, going through with all the vendors, and then of course finalizing all the details, and moving forward from there. If we have couples right now too have booked for 2019, and they may have booked a decorator last week, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to want the exact same decor that we're talking about now in August of next year. So maintaining all of those details, managing them. Of course, a lot of changes in weddings, they can affect a couple of different vendors as well. So we want to take care of all of that management for the client. We don't want them to feel like, oh, my guest count changed. I have to let X, Y, and Z vendors know. What if I forgot to tell someone? It's something that we would take care of for them so they don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah, so how much time ago does the couple need to contact a wedding planner? You mean a year ago or like 6 months? I mean, what is a good like time frame for them to start planning?
Anything's possible. I would say anywhere between 9 to 14 months is probably the most comfortable.
Okay.
But we've definitely done full service before and even 3 months. So, like I said, anything's possible. But of course, if you are kind of at that 3 month range, then of course, just having to make sure that you can make decisions fairly quickly and we can get everything booked and done. But yeah, I would say 9 to 14
9 months.
months is probably a little bit more
Okay.
comfortable.
Yeah, makes total
Yeah.
total sense. Yeah.
So, what are the things like a wedding planner is not expected to do?
Mhm. That's a great question. I think it really just depends, and I think this is something that would vary from planner to planner, and kind of what they offer. So, sometimes we've seen, some planners may include assembly of details like your welcome bags, favors, things like that, whereas some don't. So, I think it just depends on kind of what service you're going with, what the planner offers. But I think as a couple, that's something just to be aware of when you're booking, just to make sure that you're aware that what's expected of you, what's expected of the planner, it's just clear because it can be a little awkward if there's confusion about that later on. That's something we always try to be very, very upfront about, and include line by line exactly everything that we are including. So I think that's just something important for a couple to take a look at before, of course, signing anything, and just make sure they're asking questions if there's any confusion about that. But other than that, in terms of the planning itself, we are very involved. I get involved as much as like helping brides pick out their outfits and their jewelry and making sure that everything goes together and things like that. And I have a design background as well, so I think maybe that's why I like to get a little bit more involved in those
Oh, I
kinds of
saw
details.
that.
But
That's
I
really
think
cool.
yeah, that's definitely something. We get involved in those kinds of things, and even for the wedding day of, we are very involved. We really just don't want the family, the bride and groom, the friends to really lift a finger. We want them to enjoy the day, really
Mm.
focus on that. I think a lot of times, a lot of it is also what the comfort level of the client or the parents is. A lot of times we see that parents are more comfortable dealing with the priest, for example, directly. We're happy to step in, help out with that, but sometimes they just feel more comfortable that way. So there's certain things that we would talk about if they would rather the family handle those things. But for the most part, we are very involved in making sure that everything gets done. I wouldn't say that there's really anything in particular that we don't do. I think it just changes on kind of a client need by need basis. There's different, family dynamics that sometimes we're working with, and that would change the way we handle certain things and things like that as well. So it just depends on
Very,
client to
very
client.
custom
Yeah,
approach to every wedding, probably,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Chandi, you must have worked on many, like, helped many couples for their weddings and stuff. Is there a wedding that you recollect that you were really proud of, and it was beyond everyone's expectations? And
So
is there a wedding you recollect?
yeah, so I'm definitely proud of all of my weddings. I have one coming up. Actually, it hasn't happened
pick your
yet, but
pick your favorite child.
Pick your favorite.
my favorite. Okay, I think it would have to be a wedding that we did last year at the Willard Intercontinental in DC. It was
Okay.
just a wedding that I think, it was the most amazing couple. We had so much fun working together, and just everything. Like they kind of picked our dream team of vendors as well, which kind of worked out really
Mm.
well. And that's happened, of course, on quite a few occasions. There was also another wedding that we did earlier this year in Iowa, also, which they picked our dream team of vendors, which of course made it easier and more fun for us as well. But yeah, that one was actually, I would say that one was definitely one that I was particularly proud of as well, because we have honestly no connection to Iowa whatsoever, but it was just something, it was a full service wedding. We were able to pull that off. The couple was absolutely amazing as well. And
Right.
everything just turned out so well. The decor they picked was beautiful. All the details they had turned out really well. Flow of the day was really good too. And I think that's just, it was one of those cases where I really had an opportunity to get to know the couple as well. And I think that helps as well in terms of, how involved we're able to get when we really have that opportunity to get to know the couple and spend time with them and really figure out exactly what they like and don't like. And it makes our job easier too, because then we know, hey, if an emergency comes up or something like that on the wedding day, exactly how the couple would want for it to be handled. So I think that was just a wedding where everything just went so smoothly and perfectly, which of course it does for the most part, but that's definitely one of my favorite ones.
Nice. No, that's really good to have all the family members enjoy the
Yes,
wedding at the same
yeah,
time, you
definitely.
being happy,
Yeah,
So,
good
yeah.
balance.
how does somebody go about like picking, like making sure that there's a dream team of vendors? Is there like a magic formula or a process?
I wouldn't say there's a magic formula to it. I always try to leave the vendor selection to the couple. Of course, I will have my personal favorites of vendors, and of course, I have a preferred vendor list that I share with clients as well. But I don't like to limit them to any particular vendors. Just because I absolutely love a vendor doesn't mean they necessarily will. Of course, we all have different personalities, things like that, and especially a vendor like a photographer, videographer. I always tell them you need to like the that person for their personality as well, not just their work. You're spending your entire wedding day with that person. So, of course, different personalities gel together differently and things like that. So, I mean, I just think I think it just depends on, what that client feels like when they're meeting with particular vendors. I try to, of course, have that input in terms of pricing, logistics, past experiences, things like that. But until like a vendor is officially booked, I try to limit my interaction in terms of saying like, this is my absolute best friend and they're a really great vendor or anything like that, because I want it to be the client's decision and, whoever they're comfortable working with.
So I just had sorry, I had another thought. So you know how you mentioned like you try to get to know your
Hmm.
the bride and groom. How does like I'm sure like there's something that the bride and groom also does that makes you want to like connect with them. Is there like are there certain actions that they take? Like what if a bride and groom is just like well, very uptight and doesn't really want to engage with yeah,
Interact.
especially early on in the process, not that how do you yeah how does that
Yeah,
work?
I think that makes it a little bit more challenging, but at the same time, I think it's up to me as the planner to try to dig a little deeper. Did they maybe have a
Mm,
bad experience with someone before, and that's why they're more cautious and uptight in this conversation, or kind of maybe what's going on? So I try to keep it very lighthearted if that is kind of a vibe that I'm getting, then just trying to dig a little deeper, figure out what's going on. And usually, in most cases, then they open up a little bit, and then we can kind of talk a little bit more, but yeah, sometimes, I mean, for us, it's all about kind of personalization, making sure that their personalities are reflected in their wedding and kind of that whole planning process as well. If that's something that maybe a particular couple is not interested in, they might not be the best fit. Because if someone's just like, hey, I saw this one wedding on Maharani Weddings or wherever else, and I just want exactly that, then that kind of it's not fun for them, it's not fun for us either. I haven't had anything like that happen, but if something like that were to happen, I think then it I just think it might be a little bit more of a challenge because we do want it to be reflective of who they are, and we can definitely take an inspiration from Maharani Weddings or wherever else, but I think it's just really important to make sure that their personalities and who they are is kind of reflected in those details of their wedding.
right.
What should like a bride and groom keep in mind before they hire a wedding planner, basically? Like, are there any
Yeah.
checklist kind of thing that they should have in
That's a great
mind?
question.
Yeah.
So I think one of the main things to think about is kind of how much time they're going to have to put into planning. I mean, we completely understand people have very busy schedules and things like that, and obviously that's why they need the help of a planner. But I think something to think about is kind of how much involvement they want from the planner. I know different planners, including us, of course, they have different levels of service from full service to partial to wedding day management. And there might be different variations of that as well, just depending on who they're talking to. So I think that's definitely something to think about.
Right.
We've definitely come across couples who have said, hey, we want to go with wedding day management or we want to go with partial planning. when in reality they really needed full service planning, but they just may have not realized that. So that's definitely a conversation we have with them as well. But that might be something to think about for them
Okay.
ahead of time also, that, how involved are they able to be? Are they able to do some of the legwork? Do they just want to make the decisions and leave everything to the planner? Some other things to think about is just, I think similar to what I said about photo, video, also as they're interviewing planners, they want to make
Mm.
sure that it is a person that you feel comfortable with, and that you feel that you can talk
Correct.
about family dynamics or budget or things like that with. If, a couple talks to me, and if they, or any planner, and if they are feeling intimidated or something like that, they should not go with that planner, because you end up talking about a lot of personal
Right.
things, again, like budget and things like that. And again, you are spending the entire wedding day with this person, so
Right.
you want to make sure you like them as a person. Other things before kind of just looking for a planner, of course, just making sure that it is, a valid company that you're looking at, good reviews, things like that. I wouldn't say a checklist in general, but I think those are just kind of things to kind of look out for, and also just deciding, how involved you want the planner to be.
Right. So is location important too? Like location.
Yeah.
I know you do destination weddings too. So location where the bride and groom is, or location where the wedding is going to happen.
So we've had both cases before. So we're based in the Washington, D.C. area, but we do a lot of weddings in Chicago as well, and we've done some
Okay.
destination as well. But then also within the D.C. area, also we have a lot of couples who don't particularly live in this area. So I've had couples who have lived in California. I have a couple right now who lives in Tennessee, but they're getting married in D.C. So I can
Okay.
definitely, location can be definitely important, but at the same time, there's definitely a lot of flexibility with it. And I think it depends more on how familiar a planner is with that area. So, like with me not physically living in Chicago, I still know the Chicago market really well because we've done so many weddings there. Even
Mm.
the, Cancun market, we're familiar with so many of the vendors there, even though we're not physically there. So I think it just depends on that familiarity, what the experience is, and things like that. But I haven't really found the physical location to be as much of an issue.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay. So it's okay to
yeah,
have a wedding planner that's not in your city,
right.
you
And
know.
even with that Iowa wedding that I mentioned, like we had no idea who any vendors in Iowa are. So it was really kind of just bringing everyone together, and just doing research and things like that. So,
Research.
um,
Makes sense.
yeah, yeah. I think it's more important who you feel comfortable with, who works within, your means of what you're looking at, who you gel with really well, and I think the location factor kind of just works itself out.
Right.
Yeah. So, what makes you different, and who are you influenced
Mhm.
by?
So I would say in terms of being different, I think one of kind of the advantages I have is that I grew up in the States. I was born here, but I grew up very, very Indian. So like a huge Bollywood buff, knowing all about Indian weddings and things like that, even growing up. So I think that's definitely an advantage for couples because a lot of our couples right now are fusion couples where maybe one of them is not of South Asian descent, where and one of them is. So they are always looking for ways to kind of mix things up a little bit, not make things very traditional, add modern twist to them, things like that. So I think that kind of really helps. Also, this is, I also speak three Indian languages fluently, so I think that also helps with the traditional side of things.
Wow.
But also because,
Which ones?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Which
Oh,
ones?
so Hindi, Marathi, and Gujarati.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect, right?
And yeah. And also I think it makes a big difference that this is something that I do full time. I know there's a lot of planners, a lot of coordinators who may do this part time, and not to say that they can't do a great job, but I think that the level of dedication we're able to give to each and every client is definitely more because this is something I'm doing full time. I'm not sharing this time with another day job or anything like that. So like whenever our clients need something, I can definitely be available to them, whether it's during the day, evening, whatever it may be, we can always schedule something. So I think that definitely helps, as well in terms of kind of setting us apart. And um, like I said, also just that love for logistics and timelines. Like you could give me a timeline and I will just happily, even for fun, just go through and figure out all the timings and things like that. And I think having a passion for that definitely helps than maybe just having that love for wedding and decor and design. So I think it's a good combination and balance of both.
This is your calling,
I think
basically.
so.
That's how I can sense
Yeah, and it's just one of those things that you asked about an influencer as well, and it's something I've actually been thinking about a lot recently, and it's just I did my first wedding right out of high school, and then kind of just went straight into college and getting certified and things like that. So I feel like I never really officially learned from anyone. So that's why I've been thinking about it. Like, I don't know kind of how I got to this point. And I think a lot of it was just kind of learning as I do things and kind of just maybe doing some research on my own. And I honestly I feel like I can't properly answer that question because I feel like a lot of it just came to me naturally. And I just knew that, okay, these are the steps we need to take to make sure everything's organized and, have timelines set and have these logistics that doing venue walkthroughs, things like that, and then kind of moving forward. And that's just the right way to make sure that everything is going to be organized and everyone knows what to do. So yeah, I unfortunately don't have a proper answer for that question. There's definitely other planners in the industry that I definitely look up to, even now and things like that. But at that point, I wasn't, just being 18, not knowing a whole lot. Getting certified kind of just felt like the right next step at that point. So that's what I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I think this is great. I think the key here, I felt at least what I'm reading in between your words is just kind of thinking what's in the best interest of
Mhm.
the bride and the groom, and kind of doing those things has what's helped you kind of
Exactly.
serve your
Yes.
clients. Yeah. So I think we are about to wrap up our conversation. It's been pretty epic, just trying to, soak up everything that you're sharing. Uh, is there anything else that we should have asked you that we didn't, and you'd like to mention on the show?
Um, no, I think actually we covered everything.
Okay, so where can people find out about you and your work?
So our company is called Events by C. The website is events-by-c.com. Instagram is also a great place to see kind of our most recent work because we're always posting pictures there.
It's awesome. Great. I encourage everybody listening to this podcast to definitely check out your work, follow you on
Thank
Instagram,
you.
and really, I think you are inspiration for I think also other people in the wedding
Oh,
industry.
thank you so
So to
much.
to excel at what they do. So thanks for your time on today, and I think we'll call it a wrap.
Awesome. It was such a pleasure talking to both of you.
Thank you for listening to the Indian Wedding Podcast. For more exclusive time and money-saving tips, head over to somepotjewelers.com/podcast.